I would ask a recorded vote, Mr.
Pursuant to Clause 6 of Rule 18, further proceedings on the amendment offered by the gentleman from Arizona will be postponed. For what purpose the gentleman from Arizona rise?
I have an amendment at the desk designated as number 12, Part D.
The clerk will designate the amendment.
Part D, amendment number 12, printed in House Report number 111-191, offered by Mr. Flake of Arizona.
Pursuant to House Resolution 609, the gentleman from Arizona, Mr. Flake, and a member opposed each will control 5 minutes. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Arizona.
I thank the chairman. This amendment would remove slightly more than $1 million for potato research in Idaho, Oregon, Washington, and it would reduce the overall cost of the bill by a consistent amount. Now, if you like earmarks, then this spud's for you, I guess. But if you don't, and if you think that we need to save some money somewhere, then I would urge support for this amendment. According to one of the sponsors of the earmark, the potato industry generates about $3.4 billion throughout the state of Washington. In Idaho, the potato industry contributes nearly $500 million in wages. Potato sales equal about $7 billion annually. According to the USDA, last year potato farmers received nearly $3.9 billion for their crop. Now, how is it that this industry, that receives billions of dollars a year, isn't expected to invest in its own research? I know that it does some, but why are the taxpayers year after year ponying up more money to a $7 billion industry? This is a drop in the bucket to the industry, but $1 million is a lot of money to the average American family. According to one of the sponsors' website, every dollar invested in potato research yields a $39 return. I would submit that for those of us who believe in the free market, that any dollar invested that yields a $39 return, then private industry will do well investing in its own research. We don't have to ask the taxpayer to pile on. Potatoes were first introduced in the United States in the 1600s, are now the 4th largest food crop in the world. They've sustained nations in time of famine due to their ability to survive in many climates, and they're inexpensive to harvest. 79% of U.S. households consume potatoes at least 1.8 times a week. I'm included in that number. I just don't know why we're asking again the taxpayer to fund research over and over and over again for an industry that can clearly support itself here. With that, I reserve the balance of my time.
Gentleman claim time in opposition. Mr. Gentleman from Georgia.
Claim time in opposition.
Gentleman's recognized for 5 minutes.
And with that, I'll yield 2 minutes to the gentleman from Washington, 2.5.
Gentleman from Washington is recognized for 2 minutes. 2 minutes.
I appreciate the gentleman yielding, and I do admire my friend from Arizona. His persistence on this is absolutely incredible, and I share a lot of the goals that he is trying to accomplish. I really think that the gentleman's problem is not so much with individual programs, and maybe his problem is with the Ag Research Service. And maybe the gentleman ought to introduce a bill to get rid of the Ag Research Service, and that would probably take care of all the underlying problems. But the point is, the Ag Research Service has been involved in research of a number of crops, including potatoes, for a number of years. This does go to the Northwest. 50% of the potatoes that are grown in the United States are grown in Idaho, Washington, and Oregon. There are 3 state universities that are involved. University of Idaho, Washington State University, and Oregon State University submit funds for this research with these matching dollars. In addition, the potato commissions in each of those respective states match those dollars. And as a result, we have developed varieties of potatoes now that are more disease resistant. I think the tonnage, for example, in the last 50 years has increased greatly in Washington State because of the new varieties of potatoes that are brought on the market. In fact, 100,000 new acres, 100,000 acres are these new varieties that people may or may not like. And again, the issue is, okay, maybe we shouldn't have any research at all government funded. That's another debate. And the gentleman had mentioned that only powerful members of Congress get these earmarks. I would mention to the gentleman, before I came to Congress 15 years ago, this program was in existence. And the funding this year is precisely level with last year. This is not new funding. So I would suggest to the gentleman that in this case, with potatoes, they are not a program crop. They don't, when you're a potato farm, could I have another 15 seconds?
Gentleman's time has expired.
Yeah, another 15 seconds.
15
Another
seconds.
minute.
Another minute. When I thank the gentleman from Yulee. When potato farmers go out and plant their crops, they are probably the biggest gamblers in the world. And yet they don't mind putting some of their hard-earned cash when they make a profit into this research, because that may make them an even bigger gambler the next year with their varieties. So I respect the gentleman, what he's trying to do, but his issue may not be with individual crops. And this amendment goes to an individual crop in my area. Maybe his issue is with Ag Research Service in general. That's a matter for another debate, and with that, I thank the gentleman from Yulee and yield back.
Reserve the
Gentleman reserves. Gentleman from Arizona.
I thank the chairman. My issue is with overall spending, one. Two is with the need to earmark. If this funding is receiving earmarks of basically about $1 million a year, when clearly you have an industry that is capable of funding its own research. Now, I agree with the gentleman's point about this isn't one of the program crops. It's not wheat, it's not corn, it's not a crop that gets massive subsidies under the Farm Bill. We shouldn't be doing those subsidies. But two wrongs don't make a right. We shouldn't say, well, hey, we're subsidizing those, so we ought to bring some subsidy over here as well. The truth is we can't afford either of them now. We have a deficit of nearly $2 trillion this year. When I came to this institution just over 8 years ago, our entire federal budget was just around $2 trillion. Now we're going to have a deficit that equals that amount. Can't we, in this year at least, say, you know, maybe we ought to cut back on potato research just a little. Maybe we ought to cut back on other earmarks in this bill, because we're simply adding to the debt, adding to the deficit more than we can take. So it's not just that I have an issue with agricultural research spending, but I do have an issue with the way it's allocated, because as I've already demonstrated, this is awarded based on a spoil system. When just 14% of the members in this body, those who are represented on the Appropriations Committee, direct more than half of the earmarked spending in this bill, you've got a spoil system. I don't know what else to call it. And that's one issue with this bill, and with this, why I'm offering these amendments. And two, if we don't like the way the federal agencies are doing it, then we should direct them to do it differently. We should set parameters, but we shouldn't set up a parallel system and say, you award it that way, but we're going to direct ours this way. And with that, I reserve the balance of my time.
Gentleman from Georgia.
Yield 1 minute to the gentleman from Washington.
Gentleman from
Oregon. From Oregon.
Is recognized for 1 minute.
I thank the gentleman. And the reason why the gentleman from Arizona's amendment makes no sense at all is because the free market underinvests in public goods like education, like roads, and research. The market will not put enough money into research, and the potato research program that Mr. Flake's amendment intends to cut has been highly successful in a multi-state effort to develop new commercial potato varieties. The potatoes released from this program account for about 16% of current production. And the program not only creates new potato varieties for consumers, it also improves the nutritional value of potatoes and increases crop yields. In addition, this project provides significant environmental benefits, including a reduction in the need for pesticides, water, and fertilizer, and it fits into our overall goal of reducing energy consumption and increasing our production of the goods and services that we need. I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman yields back. Gentleman from Arizona.
I thank the gentleman. I find it curious, the assumption that that the free market will not invest in research, when one of the sponsors' website, as I mentioned, states that every dollar invested in potato research results in a $39 return. Now, any hedge fund, any investor of any type would take those returns. You bet, sure.
The reason why the free market will underinvest, even though given that rate of return, is whoever pays for the research doesn't reap the benefits. It's a public good. It's a basic of capitalist economic theory, which the gentleman should understand.
I don't understand. I'm sorry. If
the
there is a
gentleman will
return
yield.
on an investment, if the potato industry gets a return on an investment of $39 for every dollar returned, then it does reap some of the benefits. Yes, that potato is a public good, but it's also a private profit. Unless we've socialized potato farming here, and I don't think we have.
Would the gentleman yield?
Gentleman's time has expired. The gentleman from Georgia.
I urge support of the amendment.
Mr. Chairman, I yield a minute and a half to the gentlewoman from Washington.
Lady from Washington is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I appreciate the gentleman yielding, and I too want to speak in opposition of this amendment, although I do support the gentleman from Arizona's effort to shine the light of day on spending, and I think that these debates are very important as we're making these decisions. As has been mentioned, the funding in this bill does go for ongoing agriculture research. Potatoes specifically in this amendment, and it does have a significant impact on the economy for the state of Washington and the Pacific Northwest. The ability of farmers to keep potato crops healthy and disease-free, especially given the constant change in weather conditions and the arrival of new pests and disease, is an ongoing battle. Yet through breeding research and variety development, potato growers have access to critical research that enables them to identify the strongest varieties for growth, production, storage, and processing. Like most of us here, I'm concerned about out-of-control spending, but I'm also concerned about these tough economic times, and we should support measures that are going to grow the economy. This research does exactly that, and I urge my colleagues to vote no and yield back the balance of my time.
Generally yields back. Gentleman from Georgia. You have 30 seconds.
Mr. Speaker, if there's anybody, I'll yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman yields back. The question is on the amendment offered by the gentleman from Arizona. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. In the opinion of the chair, the noes have it. The amendment is not agreed to.
That I would ask for a recorded vote.
Pursuant to Clause 6 of Rule 18, further proceedings on the amendment offered by the gentleman from Arizona will be postponed.